Hello and welcome to Super OK, where we try to do a decent enough job to entertain people with our opinions on video games. As always, my name is Dale, and I'm joined here by the lovely and brodacious Brody. Brody, how you doing?
Apparently, I'm feeling very brodacious today, which I should feel every day, but maybe especially today. I'm feeling good. Dale, how are you doing?
You know what? I'd say I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of extra medium this morning.
Extra medium? So,
yeah.
But you're not like Dale Siduous or Dale-iferous or something?
Dale Siduous.
Yeah, there you go.
What if I went bald every winter, but then it came back in the spring?
I mean, challenge mode? You want to do it? Do it.
I love the idea of how insane it would be. We are joined here by a very special guest. We've got Pastel Potato in the house. Say hello, Pastel.
Hey. Hi.
So, Pastel, how are you doing today?
I am doing splendiferous.
That's great.
I wish I could say Dale-iferous, but you know, we can't all be Dale. So
no, that's true.
Pastellaceous or something.
Pastellaceous.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, that's great. That definitely does not sound like a venereal disease. Doctor, I got a bad case of pastellaceous.
It's pastellaceous.
Oh shit! Got to get the shampoo again.
Pastelicious sounds good. Pastellaceous is like, I don't know.
Yeah. No.
One is a continental breakfast item. The other is a bad way to go on dates.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. I love it. Damn it.
This happens every episode.
That was so dumb that it got me. Every week we do a highlight of the week where we explain something fun and exciting that happened to us this week. And we always let our guests go first. So Pastel, why don't you tell us the thing that made your week a little brighter, a little better, a little nicer?
Well, this week I decided to get back into Destiny 2, and surprisingly, the new season feels like it's going to be fun. I'm mostly excited because of competitive, and I've already killed the competition by getting Silver 2, so it's not going to be much of a climb to get to Gold.
Nice. I did not realize that they had put ranked
I didn't either.
like levels into Destiny like that, so that's fun.
They did. They came out with competitive, and it's insanely fun, surprisingly.
Huh.
So then this affects like it's not like Iron Banner then. It's just like the other non-control.
Yes.
Like survival, or I can't even remember the names of them.
You were right. Survival is basically the ranked before. But this time they decided to add a little spin where you can actually take the ball, and then there's another round where it's just deathmatch. So even if you're not good at one, you'll be good at the other.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad that there's a deathmatch version of it because that's what everybody plays it as anyways, even if it's control or whatever. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that. How's the rest of the season? Is it just dunking balls into baskets, or is it?
The rest of the season, in my opinion, is good because we're getting more information on Clovis AI. We're
Clovis
also getting
Sorry.
Yeah, and honestly, every time I see him, I'm like, Clovis Bray! Ayo! But honestly, I think that what's carrying this season right now is the winter event, because you can bake cookies and get like additional cosmetics from like different characters, which makes it a little bit easier to get back into the game, because I feel like a lot of people were like, okay, it's kind of dead right now.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Cool. So the funny story about the cookies, it's called the Dawning, right?
Yes.
So it's really funny. When I was we played Destiny 2 on and off for a very long time, and the first time I had done the cookie event was also the first time that I had been exposed to the Last Wish raid, because like I was never really a big raider or anything. I would just do kind of the Dungeons and Strikes and stuff. And so I didn't know what Riven was. And then you had to do the thing where you deliver a cookie to Riven and have to do the like wall in Last Wish to get there. Mm-hmm. And I was very surprised when I jumped down that hole and was like, that's a gigantic fucking dragon. What? How did dragons get in Destiny? What the fuck? So, yeah. Anyways, the Dawning. Bake your cookies, kids.
Yeah, bake your cookies.
My favorite part of the Dawning is how you'll just see people walking around in like dumb, like holiday gear, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's just like a Santa hat on top of like, I don't know, this beefed out Titan. It's like, that's perfect. That's great.
And you still probably always see the people with the like cardboard masks from the Halloween event running around.
Still running around. Like it's so hilarious to see them with the oh my god, I think it's the donkey mask or the horse mask.
There's a horse mask?
I didn't know that.
There's a horse mask.
Oh, probably because of the spectral horse from like 3 seasons ago.
Yes, spectral horse. It's hilarious. I hate that horse, by the way.
Dude, I hate all horses.
I do not hate all horses.
Ugh, I like ponies. We align on exactly one horse then. That's fine. All right. I'm going to go next for my highlight of the week. For those of you who are listening and don't know, my dog's name is Drake. He got real sick last week, like to the point where we weren't sure if he was going to make it. It was bad times. And we called our vet and we were like, you know, hey, when can we get in for an appointment? And they were like, next week. And we were like, okay, what should we do if we need to take him to like an emergency place? And they gave us the local emergency place, and we had been there before, and it's always terrible. And so we just weren't sure what to do. And then they called us the next day and we're like, hey, we had a cancellation at like 2. Do you want to bring him in? And we did. And they gave him some meds and all of that. And he is doing so much better. He's like eating his treats now. He's drinking water again. He's like able to walk up and down the stairs. I had to carry this poor dog up the stairs.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, you little old man. But honestly, so my highlight of the week, we get his blood work back on Monday. I'm optimistic. It's just the fact that Drake is still here. He's the best. He's tiny. I love him with my whole heart. And I'm glad that he's still with us. So that's my highlight of the week.
I'm glad as well. Like, I feel like dogs are like literally a part of us. And if we ever see them sick, it's just, it cuts us a little inside because we're like, you're literally you're like my child at this point. So I'm glad to hear that he's doing okay and that you'll be getting some good news, hopefully.
Yeah. Do they have any idea like what actually might be wrong? Or it sounds like probably antibiotics they have him on.
They initially thought he might have had like some sort of blockage because he was distant and not eating and all of that, but he had gone to the bathroom. And so a blockage stops that, right? Because you block one end of the pipe, the other pipe, nothing comes out the other end.
Yes.
So they're not 100% sure. They gave him just some generic like anti-nausea medication and some antibiotics and that sort of stuff. And we'll find out more when we get the blood work. But honestly, he is like, if he was at 2% Thursday, he's at like 70% today. He's still not eating, you know, his regular food, but he'll eat a treat. If I give him a piece of beef jerky, he'll scarf that down. So at this point, he's just being a picky bitch, but I love him. So,
well, I'll keep my fingers crossed, man. That's always scary.
I appreciate it. I very specifically didn't go last, though, because I didn't want the last highlight of the week to be a bummer. So, Brody, what's your highlight of the week?
I'll go ahead and pick it up, too, because I have a real world one. This is not like Brody plays some fishing game like it usually is. Although,
hold on a second. I played some of that fishing game on mobile.
No, let's hold on. Let's talk. We'll talk about it later. Well,
it is not good.
You know, it's not good. It's excellent.
Shut up.
All right. So, no, for real though. So, I over the past like 5, maybe longer years have been pretty bad about using time off and going on vacations and stuff. And I've really tried to get better about that last year. And I'm carrying that on by we just booked a vacation. It's actually going to happen quite soon. So I'm really excited to kind of get out of the area. We're going to New Orleans, which seems like a totally fucking awesome town to go to.
Wait, hold on. Where are you going?
New Orleans.
Thank you.
New Orleans. So I'm really excited to see a lot of live jazz, and you know, my wife is really excited to like go to really old school cemeteries and do walking tours of historical sites and stuff like that. And honestly, we're really excited about it. And one of the things that I'm also double excited about is I get to take one of my Christmas presents on vacation, with me, which is I have a Steam Deck, which is going to arrive in a couple days here.
Ooh.
So I jumped on the bandwagon last minute because there was a person who really needed to buy me, for whatever reason, a very expensive Christmas present. So I am, all good things. I am very excited about my vacation and being able to, rock some Vampire Survivors while I'm out there.
That's awesome. Now,
I was about to say, if you become a vampire, you turn me too. Okay.
Got it. 100%. Will do.
There is a really big holiday happening very soon.
Now, luckily, it doesn't overlap with that.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going for Mardi Gras, like if you were going to show off them sweet boobs or what, but...
I was going to say you have to go to Mardi Gras.
I will get there. I am not at that level of like Brody the extrovert yet. I'll get there. A couple years. I think the first time we will go to Nolans, we want it to be like we just want to check out the city, right? And then next time we go, we could be like party mode, whatever.
I love it.
So okay. I just want to see some good music and like eat some crawdads, mud bugs,
and that gumbo.
Bugs. Yeah, the étouffée.
Oh man,
love it.
That's
hey,
amazing.
What are we talking about this week?
Well, actually, I was going to ask, have you ever cooked crawdads?
Actually, yes. Lots of them, weirdly enough.
Yeah. When you were cooking those crawdads, has anyone ever walked in while you were in the middle and just started giving you like all sorts of advice to give you like a better meal?
Yeah, it would be my dad.
It usually does not end well, correct?
This did end well because he's a better cook, but you're right. Generally speaking.
Okay,
I do
so
this
in
to
this
my wife all the time, and it's something I don't even think about, and I'm just like, oh, what are you doing? And she's like, shut the fuck up and get out of the kitchen. I'm like, okay. She preempts it now.
I love that. So in the world of video games, developers will, from time to time, request folks come into the kitchen and play a game that is still baking for a number of reasons. This week, we're talking about the world of early access. Maybe the first and most famous instance of early access in video games was Mojang's Minecraft. You may have heard of it. It sold a copy or two. Marcus Persson started working on the game in 2009, but had trouble devoting enough time to it alongside his full-time job. So he found that if he charged players like $15, 10 euros for access to an alpha version of the game, he could get feedback from a wider player base, and he could also make enough to quit his job and work on the game full time. The numbers show that around 2 million players took part in Minecraft's early access prior to its full launch in 2011. Since then, we've seen an explosion of early access games across all platforms, including Steam, GOG, Desura, itch.io, and inexplicably, Xbox Game Pass. So let's get in there. Let's dive directly into the kitchen mid quiche or what have you, and see how broken everything is. I want to start with the easiest question, which is, what's the first early access game you remember playing? What did you think of it? Was it cool? A total mess? Most importantly, did you end up playing the full release, and was it worth it?
So I think for me, it absolutely was Minecraft. Because I did hear about it when it first came out and people talking about it. And so I downloaded it on my Mac in grad school a long, long time ago. And I didn't play very much of it at all. Like it was just at a time in my life where I had not much extra time. And that time that I did have, I was devoting to what the fuck? Oh, I was playing like Rock Band and Guitar Hero, and lots of Rock Band and Guitar Hero in grad school, weirdly enough. So, I did end up going back and obviously playing way more of the full release of Minecraft than the early access one. But like, I honestly didn't even play enough to be able to say how busted it was in like really early stage.
All right. Was it worth it to play it early?
No, absolutely not. Like there was no reason for me to get into the early access. Like I just kind of was like, oh, this looks cool. Here's $15. And then like I played 10 minutes of it and was like, I'll come back to this at some point.
What was there even to do then?
I mean, I think that at that point there was no creative mode, as I recall. It was only survival. And so you always had to, like, the sandbox and stuff was still there, but obviously they had like a quarter of the recipes or whatever that you could build. Mm-hmm. So it pretty much was like trying to stay alive, as I recall. It was like a little bit heavier on the survival aspect, which now just seems so distant given that game is just like IRL Infinite Legos.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that game was so survival because mine was as well. My first early access game was Fortnite. I played it back when it was like a buggy mess of a glorified base building horde mode. For those of you who aren't aware, it was not a battle royale. It was you built a base and it was impossible to figure out how to build stuff. Everything cost way too many resources to build. It was crazy. They did have loot boxes in the early access thing though, but they were llama pinatas, which very much did not fit the theme of the game. I remember like, why the fuck is it a llama pinata? But then they stole the idea of a battle royale mode from games like DayZ and PUBG. And then obviously it blew up. If you would have told me back then that Travis Scott would one day host a concert in the game, I would have had to ask you who that was because this was like a long, long time ago and Travis Scott wasn't famous. But also I would not believe that anyone would host a concert in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you, Pastel?
My first early access game was actually Grounded. So
nice.
That game's good.
It was like a really recent game. I never get the chance to get into early accesses. So the fact that I was able to play it and then play the full release and see the differences, it was absolutely astounding. When I first played it, the ants were super annoying and they stole everything out of my base. Like they were literally spawn in my base as I was gone. And
man.
The thirst and hunger after I think I played for 5 minutes and I was cutting down a leaf, which is a tree in that game, and I was already like hungry and thirsty and I was about to die. So to see the full release and all the patches that they did, it just got better and better and better to the point where even the story mode was just so good. And honestly, if it wasn't for God of War, I would have said it was Game of the Year.
That's high praise. Wow. I really enjoyed my time with Grounded, though. And you're right. I didn't even think about it, but the story in that game is really engrossing, which is really weird for like a survival game.
It is. I think more survival games should do that, where they start to implement like stories, because as a 90s kid, I watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So to have that little reference of like shrinking teenagers in there, and then to have us play through their eyes and see all of the dangers they were encompassing, and then help them get back to their actual sizes, it really touched like my heart, because I'm like, wow, like I used to watch this, I was a big fan of it, and now I get to play it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome. Now, I just out of curiosity, was the only way to access that on Game Pass, or was there a different way to do early access?
So, unfortunately, I think the only way to do the early access was on Game Pass. It was a hand-in-hand one. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
It is so bizarre to me that Microsoft has early access games on Game Pass at all. It's just like
wild.
It is.
Yeah.
It is like what? Like I think the other one that I saw was Deep Rock Galactic. Like I was like, wow, the early access on this one, like coming out of left field, is kind of like crazy, because like on PC, I think you have to buy the full game.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah,
man,
it's wild.
That's crazy.
We'll get back into Xbox a little bit further on.
We certainly will. All right. So obviously, a lot of the games that we talked about, they were in early access for like several years, like a lot of years in the case of Minecraft and Fortnite. And I think Grounded was in early access for like 2 years, 3 years. Some games like Star Citizen have stayed in early access for, I think, ever is how long Star Citizen. It started in early access at the Big Bang and still is in early access. Have you guys ever played any games that were caught in like early access limbo? And what state of completion does the game appear to be in at this point, if it's still in early access?
So yeah, I mean, I did take the plunge on Star Citizen right after I got my gaming PC, because like that is one I had my eye on for a long time, and was like, this is never going to come to consoles probably. And I always liked the idea of like space exploration and stuff, but it was another one of those ones where, like, because I just went so hog wild on things that I bought for my PC that I was like, well, I haven't spent much time there. I'll tell you this. I spent long enough in Star Citizen to know that it's really technical to pilot your ship. It's really hard to get out of the initial like spaceport area where you have to like really pay attention to what's going on. And that game was one of the few that like really taxed my system quite a bit because I've got a 3080 rig, and like it was a little rough on my system, which was kind of hard to tell. Anyways, long way to say Star Citizen. I haven't gone back in a long time. I really do want to get in there and try it again. The other one, like Fortnite, but I didn't try it back when it was not a battle royale. But Fortnite was also in EA as a battle royale, like for a long time.
Yeah.
And I do, that game has improved and improved and improved over a very huge amount of years. So I did see some of the improvements over the years with just basic stuff. But like the thing that always kind of was hard for me is I just hate the building in the battle royale. I absolutely fucking hate it.
I hated it when they introduced no build mode. Immediately re-downloaded the game.
Yeah. I'm surprised I haven't yet because I thought that the other stuff, the gunplay and everything else, was pretty fun.
It was
for a light BR, but I just hated the building so much. So
yeah,
I'll have to give it another shot.
Quick question about Star Citizen. You said that it was taxing on your computer. Is that because like graphically it was just so impressive, or is it that it's still in early access and so it's not optimized?
Hard to say, although the game is pretty impressive graphically.
All right.
I think it's probably one of those things where it just renders too much shit instead of like using distance draw or something like that. Because like, the whole concept of the game is you can like go anywhere within your galaxy or whatever, right? So.
So for me, the early access game that I noticed had been in limbo for a while was Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if you guys have heard of that game. Yeah. I believe it was announced probably like in the 2019, 2020 region, maybe.
Sounds right. Yeah.
And literally it has been in early access since then. And for me, like the game feels severely polished and it looks like it's nearing its full access. So I'm very like happy that they kind of took their time. I feel like a lot of early access games, they try to rush, but the ones that take the longer, like year, 2 years, 3 years, those ones, they tend to kind of veer to the audience and they're like, okay, after listening to the feedback, we're now gonna wrap it up and go in.
Yeah. So that game we'd heard about for a while, and I think it's just about to hit 1.0, right? Like
yes,
early 2023.
Yes.
Cool. Well, hopefully, hopefully it's a smooth transition because I know a lot of people are super hyped on that game.
Baldur's Gate is one of those games where I'm like, I'm not going to play the early access because I want to play the full release. There are a bunch of games out there where I'm like, I'll try the early access because I probably won't play it when it comes out. And Baldur's Gate is definitely not that. I'm going to spend a good chunk of time with it once it actually does a full release. I did the same thing with Hades. I was like, I'm not going to play the early access. I'm only going to play it when it releases because I want to play the finished version,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A game that I didn't play the finished version of at all was a game called Rust, which seemed like it was never going to come out of early access. It first came out in 2013 and didn't have its full release until 2018, which is insane. And I played it really early on, running around just naked with a rock, smashing other naked rock people. And I asked one of the people I was playing with, I think it was one of my roommates, when the game got good. And they said, what are you talking about? The game is good. And
immediately uninstalled.
Yeah, I was like, oh, great. This is not for me then. I'm glad I played it now. And I was truly amazed that it made it all the way to launch. And I am even more amazed at how beloved it is now. People love this game, and I just do not understand it. So the fact that it was in early access for 5 years, they must have done something right. To Pastel's point, I was in there for a while, and it seems like they figured it out. Well, but I will never play it. I don't want to be
honestly. I'm going to tell you a little secret. The reason the game is so popular is just because people love being toxic, and on that game, it's home of toxicity.
That makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
That tracks, because those games always drive me fucking crazy like that. And Ark is another one where it's like,
yes,
God, why do people play this game?
And Conan Exiles is another one.
Yeah. Conan Exiles, yeah.
Yeah, but Conan Exiles at least has the dong slider. So I understand some people, you can role play the fantasy, It's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, one of the biggest industry trends with early access has to do with free-to-play games, which offer the purchase of Founders Packs, where you get access to items and perks that can carry over to the full game. Games like Fortnite are famous for this. What do we think of this approach? And I actually want to go first on this, because you would think I would hate this, but I don't hate this. As long as two things are true. One, you can play the game without having to buy the pack. I don't want to have to buy a thing to find out that the early access version of the game is broken and shitty. And two, that the packs are reasonable, right? Sadly, for a lot of the games that I've seen use this model, neither of those things are true. You have to buy a Founders Pack, and it's like $30 gets you one skin. Mm-hmm. And it's like, fuck you forever. But like Lost Ark did this, and they did it really well, actually. It was, you could play Lost Ark without buying the Founders Pack, and then you also, like, the stuff that you got in the Founders Pack was worth what you paid for the Founders Pack. It wasn't like you were buying access into the early access game. I think the absolute worst of these, though, is when there are things in the pack that affect gameplay, and it's only available during launch, which means that if you get into the game later on, you are automatically at a disadvantage against those people who have been there since the beginning. And I understand wanting to reward people who've been there since the beginning, but fuck you for making it a gameplay advantage. Like, just make it a cool cosmetic.
Yeah. For me, honestly, I think it's a good approach, because sometimes with early access games, you have to kind of play this raffle to get in, and it's like, will I, won't I? And if they put a price tag on it, a reasonable one, I do not like price tags that are like $60 for early access, but if it's a reasonable $15-$10, then it allows me to get in without having to sit here and watch all these other people get in, and then I'm just sitting here like, I also applied, but I didn't get in. And most of the time, games like that, it gives me a chance to really explore and see what the game has to offer, instead of paying a full $70 price tag, which is what they're going towards now, for a game that is going to have bugs, going to have a decrepit story that just falls apart. I'm tired of those games, and that's why I lean towards the paying for the early access.
First off, great job on the word decrepit. But my question is, what about free-to-play games where they do this? Are you still okay with it?
Yes, I am still okay with it, because it allows me to kind of get some cosmetics, but it doesn't, like, as long as, like, to take off of what you said, as long as it doesn't give them a gameplay advantage, I'm okay with it.
Cool.
Yeah. That makes all three of us then. I'm the same way, where like nobody loves pay to win, right? Pay to win always feels bad, and especially from like a founder's perspective. It's funny, we were just talking about Star Citizen, and that absolutely is a game where like you have to buy the founders pack to play the game. Otherwise you can't even play it. And the founders pack, they have a bunch of different ones, because you're buying a ship, and you can buy different ships right in the gate. And so you technically could get an advantage if you bought a ship that was more like a combat ship right out of the gate, and you wanted to do better combat. And then somebody who was like a hauler or something, right? You could just like roll up to them and blow their shit up because you have a combat ship, right?
Because you went with $99 best value pack.
Yep, because you went with best value pack. But I absolutely agree with you that like if this is a free to play game and it gives you the opportunity to get in there early, check it out, and then you can say, hey, I like this enough to support it, and I get some advantages out of it as long as they're not pay to win. that's a really, it's a really great thing. It totally seems like something that like Warframe would have done.
Warframe did this.
Okay, well that makes sense to me, right? So that makes sense to me, given kind of their overall look at how they do their free to play model.
Yeah, there is a specific Warframe skin that you could only get if you were like an early access Founders Pack purchaser. But again, it was just a skin, no gameplay benefit.
Sure, cosmetic only. Cool, love it.
Yeah, cosmetic is the way to go.
Yeah,
yes,
cool. So we've got a bunch of games like Grounded, Anvil, Craftopia that have popped up on Xbox Game Pass, which is kind of insane because it is a service that you pay for. It's like Netflix, and Netflix isn't releasing movies that are like half done, right? And so it's kind of weird that these are on Game Pass. Have we tried any of them? I know, Pastel, you talked about Grounded. Does Game Pass make this approach more palatable? What do you think?
So, yes, as someone who's tried Grounded, I do think that if it wasn't for Game Pass, that the game would not have taken off as heavily as it did. I feel like a lot of the times when you have, Game Pass releasing these early access, I as a consumer, I see that, I'm like, okay, it's free, it's early access, I'll give it a try because there's no harm in it. But, via another medium, say Steam, for example, if they had an early access game, I'm just not going to know because it's so far down the list.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a really great point. The discoverability on Game Pass is way better.
It's way higher. So it just opens up a lot. And then not to mention if they also, do like a Xbox sponsorship where they're on the banner for Xbox Game Pass, that also increases the chance of them being discovered. So, I feel like a lot of the developers that want to come out on early access should try and get in with Game Pass if they can.
Yeah, I think that's a super, super good point. And that's actually something that I wanted to talk about too, which is that like, if we go back to the original kind of where Marcus Persson was at his point in his life in 2009, where he just was like doing dev work on the side before he was buying like $80 million mansions in Beverly Hills with his money. Like this is a perfect platform, the perfect handshake between like developers who need some extra help and then consumers who don't want to pay extra to experience like the basically open beta of a game. I think that would be like a really cool idea for a platform, but like to Pastel's point, that could also get really easily bogged down just if everybody was putting their stuff out there and like on Steam, there's just so much stuff out there. But yeah, I mean, these 3 games that are listed, I've played all of them. And God, Craftopia is such a mess. I'll be honest with you, that game is like they took the aesthetic of Breath of the Wild and they're just like, hey, let's put every video game in here. Let's just jam it all into one game and like throw it out there. And it's really janky and I wanted it to be okay and it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, this is it, to Pastel's point, like it's just a great opportunity to play games like this. Like I don't have to pay into it. The developer gets paid. I can try out the game. Love it.
Yeah. I talked about how much I liked Grounded on our 2022 recap. And I honestly would never have played it if it weren't on Game Pass. And I was in the Discord and people were like, hey, we're going to play Grounded. You should download it. And I was like, yes, I have access to it for free. I will waste a night on a game that I don't like. And then I loved it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was awesome. I also think that it's insane that Vampire Survivors was on Game Pass as an quote early access game, since it's a $3 game on Steam. I thought that was pretty funny. But I love the fact that it was there, and I love the fact that more people got the chance to play it. You could do it over cloud and all of that. So yeah, I think Game Pass doing early access is great as long as they continue to be transparent on the games that are early access. It would be really easy for Microsoft to just like, oh, we're going to quietly hide the early access on this game so that way we can get people to play it and get all of the information that we want and all of that. And then, oh, now it's the full release. Play it again, bitches. Like I don't want to hear that from Microsoft,
Yeah. So luckily, I think they've been pretty good so far because they always put it on the the like box image, quote unquote.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so which is good.
Yeah, it's all about transparency as far as like Dale is saying.
Yeah, they've been good so far, but never put it past a company to do some shitty shit. Talking about that, we can't talk about early access without talking about its proximity to pre-orders, some other shitty shit. Ultimately, while some platforms offer return policies on early access games, by and large, you are buying an unfinished game. You are paying for a cake that is in the middle of being baked. What sort of problems does this raise?
I mean, it's just like the most obvious one, right? Sorry, Pascal. It's the most obvious one where it's like, it just seems really predatory to exploit gamers' hype in a game to like with some flashy screenshots. Like, I don't know how many questions of this outline I really just wanted to write. Boy, it seems like No Man's Sky was early access for like the same reason. But like, yeah, it definitely, the risks are up there. It would be great if there was, across the board policies where like within the first 24 hours you could get a refund or whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like being exploited.
Yeah, to go off of what you said with the return policy, honestly, like I feel like there should be a widespread return policy because unfinished games aren't going to be automatically good. And I feel like a lot of people feel like when they release a early access game, they're like, oh yeah, it's a little buggy, but you're going to be super interested in it. And it's like after 10 minutes, 20 minutes of playing the game, I'm like, well, I want my $60 back. Yeah. So I don't think you should be able to just take someone's money and not be like, okay, did you not enjoy it? Too bad. You don't get anything back. Like, everywhere it should be a policy, and if they don't kind of incorporate that more, I feel like it's gonna kill like the will of a lot of players to play the game, especially when it comes out in full access.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I've got a hot take here. I don't think companies should charge for early access games at all across the board. They are essentially getting QA testers and focus groups for free. Those are paid positions in any other industry. It is wild to me that gamers are so addicted to hype that we are willing to pay for the privilege of playing a beta. I think that is absolutely wild. Shit is legit upside down world. Like, why are we doing this as gamers? Also, what about all the games that die in early access? What happens to the poor saps paid for a game that never even comes out? If you don't charge for early access games, that never becomes a problem, right? Get your money elsewhere. You can get your QA and your focus groups from the gaming community at large. You don't have to pay us. And some people will be excited to be able to shape a game or whatever, right? You should not be able to have your cake and eat it too as the game developing company. You should not be able to have people pay you to test your game. There's something just like inherently unethical about that. Unethical words.
I never thought about that. Like I've always been like, oh, okay, I'm so excited to spend my money to play this early access game. But like hearing you say that there literally are focus groups that play these games and get paid, it kind of does make me feel like I'm getting the shorter end of the stick. So I agree. Maybe these early access games should be free. And if they want like the ideas that we have, if they want to know how to make the game better, then they should have a focus group, have these beta testers play it and pay them, and just kind of stop taking money from us and then being like, oh, well, I got all of my fill. This game is dead now. I'm going on to the next one. And there have been companies that have done that.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good call. Yeah. There's always some like, when you boil it all the way down, there's always like a little bit of sleight of hand here. It's not great.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the flip side of that, though. That's what a bummer that my hot take was. So let's move on. Have there been any games that you're aware of that have become substantially better as a result of the early access process? Have you personally participated in giving feedback on these things? I want to go first because I want to talk about the Hades early access program, which apparently I did not take part in, but it was a way better game based on the feedback from the player base. I will not be taking place in the Hades 2 early access program because I want to play it once it's done. I want to eat a fully baked cake, right? Because of how good Hades 1 was.
Would they even do an early access for Hades 2?
They said that they're going to do it.
Oh yeah, no, they are.
It was in the announcement that it's going to be coming to early access.
Seems a little weird to me, but okay. All right. Supergiant's going to do what they're going to do.
I mean, honestly, if you think about like the amount of polish that Hades has and the amount of time that it's spent inside early access, it clearly paid off for them. Why wouldn't you try and replicate that success again?
No, that absolutely makes sense. I think that was actually kind of the argument that I was going to make, though, is that like, but it was so polished and like maybe they learned all the lessons the first time around and they wouldn't need to do it again. It's kind of where I was.
But there's zero opportunity cost for them, right?
You're not wrong, especially since like people will be chomping at the bit to play Hades 2. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, lots of people will pay into this.
It costs the company literally $0. Right. In fact, it costs them $- to not do it because they're going to get your money early. And then it's like, oh, we're improving it along the way. You know, we're accepting your feedback. You helped to shape the world. Don't you feel a sense of pride and accomplishment?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
That's kind of how it is with Baldur's Gate 3 because I paid for that game and it was $60. And they're like, oh, here's the game. And honestly, I kind of say it benefits from it because I've given a few feedbacks on like some of the bugs that they have had, some of the classes, the hairstyles, and honestly, they've really improved. Like I've seen more hairstyles that fit on people of color. I've seen more body types. I've seen more dialogue with characters and the environments. When I first started playing, it was not as rich as it is now. So in my experience, it is a little steep of $60 for that because they're basically like, give me your money, you just bought the game. But you know, having that ability to give my feedback on it and work along with them is kind of fulfilling a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the only thing worse than an early access game that's unfinished while you're playing it is an early access game that is unfinished and they don't listen to the things you have to say.
Hence, like, why are you even doing early access?
Uh-huh.
Also, yeah, I mean, that would be pretty cool. Like, I don't know how many glitches I've encountered in games where I've just like, I guess I'll just wait for that to go away and won't do anything about it because it's an actual release. So I think it would feel good to actually play like an early access and see some of the things that you're talking about change or go away or whatnot, especially if it has to do with like the culture of the game, right? Like to build more, pathways to inclusivity and things like that are awesome, right?
Yeah. On one hand, it's really, really cool that you mentioned like representation in the game and they listen to that feedback.
That's
and
awesome.
On the other hand, it's really shitty that you had to even say that to them, you know?
Yeah.
So
like,
I don't know.
We're living in 2022. We got to keep going forward, not backward.
That is true. We do have to get more forward, but you know, we have Hogwarts Legacy coming out next year, and I've already seen like the dev play tests with the characters, and it looks so good with the style. Like there are a lot of POC representations in there, and it's absolutely amazing.
Hopefully, there's more than one, POC hairstyle. I don't want to see like 50 black students running around with all having to have cornrows or whatever.
Gross.
Yeah.
That would be awful. I'll make mine really quick. I don't think I've played that much of a game in early access to actually be able to bring it over and see the improvements. Like I said, my only time would have been Grounded, but I haven't gone back to Grounded yet to kind of see the improvements. But from what Pastel says, it's a much better game, so I'm excited to get back in and try it again.
Dude, it's legit fun. It
was fun back in the day too. It just was like frustrating to what Pastel was saying.
For me, it was frustrating because you would take a leaf and you would put it in a pile and suddenly it's all up in the air. So
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of that was still there when I was playing it, by the way. There was some shit that would just rocket into the sky and you'd never see it again. It was pretty funny. It was Team Rocket blasting off again. All right. Do we think that early access is going to be around in some form from this point forward, or do we think that it's going to go the way of the dodo?
I mean, it's going to be around, I think. Like I feel like in the perfect world, going back to the discussion we were having a couple minutes ago, like there would be some sort of like universal closed beta protocol where people could that would be financially friendly to the developers, where it would get games in front of people, but they don't have to pay all this money to get into it. Right. But I think that there always will be some form of early access gaming. And I mean, it kind of goes back to Dale, your point, where it's like it's a negative money situation for a lot of people. Like, to not put your game in early access, you're just losing an opportunity to monetize your game. So I think it's going to be around.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, like you have to realize that a lot of the gaming industry gets their money from people who are very happy to get into early access while paying for it. So it's definitely going to stay around a lot longer. And I feel like with VR, especially coming in, it's going to get a lot more saturated because a lot of people are like excited for these VR headsets to come out, and they really want to get into virtual reality. And unfortunately there's not a lot of games. So now that they're seeing that there's a market for it, there's going to be more games that are coming out, which means more early access.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there's no way that a AAA VR game is cheaper to produce than a AAA game. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I think it's going to be around forever. I'm excited for the next evolution, which is where you pay a studio money and they just kind of tell you some game ideas they have.
Oh God!
Like, what do you think about this game idea? What about this one?
This is a total Michael Transactions move here.
Dude, I cannot wait for the EA Game Ideas pack bundle. $99 best value. But seriously, anytime that there's a way for a company to get something for nothing, they're going to take it.
Yep.
Right? So there's no way early access is going anywhere. That said, unless I feel like being QA for a game, I don't think I'm going to be participating in any of the processes. If I want to support a small developer who's doing early access, I might. But for the most part, much like pre-ordering, I'm not going to participate in the process. You reward companies for essentially doing shitty things. Speaking of shitty things, do you guys think that AAA titles like Call of Duty, God of War, Pokemon, or other companies should have early access because of the decline in game quality that we have had over the years?
I mean, I'll be honest that I'm pretty torn on this one. I would love for people to have this, these games in their hands early, but I just don't like. I feel like the AAA, the big studios are always going to find a way to undercut it with like embargoes or something like that, so that you actually don't get first impressions or something like that coming out, and you would have to pay into it, right? Because that would be the ultimate thing that you would gain as a consumer, is you'd basically be able to get somebody to report back to you on how the latest Call of Duty was or whatever, and if it sucks or it's unfinished or whatever, you would hear about that. So I think it would be kind of undercut, but like at the same token, like these companies have enough money to pay for quality assurance testing, and they I promise you that Game Freak had people that played the latest Pokemon games and were like, guys, this is pretty rough, and they're like, fuck it, it prints money, send it out, let's do it, deploy it, right? Like, doesn't matter. I guarantee that's a boardroom decision to deploy that game.
Counter argument to your review embargo thing. Have you ever heard of a situation where there was a review embargo for a game and it came out and people were like, oh, this is the best game of all time?
No.
It doesn't fucking happen, right? No, if you created a great game, you want people to talk about your great game.
Yes.
Yeah, to the point where you actually see people lifting their own embargoes and stuff sometimes on games. Like I think it happened on like God of War or something recently, where people were getting reviews early and they were like, "Oh wow, this got to market really early." Maybe the latest Need for Speed was one of those where they're like, "Oh, by the way, the game's out," because it was doing really well and everybody was excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. Go ahead. Sorry.
It is ridiculous. Like I kind of agree with you, Brody, because I think that AAA games should not be paid because they're already making so much money. But I do think they should do early access, but make it for free. And the reason I say that is because there are so many games that I've bought that I was so disappointed in, because I've waited for years for these games, and they still come out, and they don't put the love that they put into games that they used to 10 years ago. And for me, an example would be Saints Row.
Oh, God.
Exactly. I expected nothing great, but they had years to produce this game, and they still did even lower than what I had. And for that to happen, it's just a spit in the face, because I don't understand how you can take the money of people who have put and invested so much time into your game and just be like, well, we just slapped this together, here you go.
Yeah.
So
Saints Row was fucking ridiculous.
It was ridiculous, and I returned it. But I think there should be early access for AAA games, so that we can kind of, at least not like an hour of the game, but like maybe even just early access, we can play for like 15 minutes and kind of test it a little bit. And then if we want to pay and do the whole thing and kind of give them their ideas, then we are allowed to do that.
Yeah. Saints Row is such a good call out, because the bar for that game was on the fucking floor. It's like, be a slightly funnier GTA clone. And they managed to like turn into Paper Mario and Limbo under the bar. Like, it was, I cannot believe how bad that game's reviews were. I did not pick it up because I saw how bad the reviews were. My answer to this question about AAA games going into early access is no. You're a AAA studio. You should fucking hire professionals. You should give them the required time and resources to complete the game you are trying to make. Shit is legitimately insane out there right now. Companies are only doing it because there's no repercussions. We have shit on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet a lot, but it is a game that was released broken. Every single review that came out for Pokemon said this game is broken. And it still sold 10 million copies in the first 3 days. Gamers are not incentivizing companies to polish their games if they can sell 10 million copies of a glitchy mess. We as gamers have a responsibility to vote with our time and our wallets. And we are failing in doing so. And therefore, we are letting these companies, AAA companies, piss all over us. And if that's your thing, like if you enjoy like financial domination by EA or whatever, like great, I'm not here to yuck your yum. But for most of us, I don't want to get pissed on by a multi-billion-dollar company, and therefore I am not going to participate. It's why I stopped pre-ordering after I got burned by Anthem. Yep. And it's why I stopped buying AAA games on day one after I got burned by some other ridiculous game. I can't remember which one it was.
Cyberpunk was a good example.
Actually, you are 100% correct. It was Cyberpunk, because there was a review embargo of
the PS4
like a bunch
version.
of stuff. Yep. And so I bought the PS4 version. I saw the PC reviews and it was like, it's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. And then the PS4 version came out and fucking CD Projekt Red.
Yeah,
exactly. And so, man, like, fuck this. I'm just going to wait. I can wait a week for the reviews to come out. I can wait a week to make sure that everything is like copacetic, that the servers aren't shit once everybody gets into it, and yada, yada, right? I do not have to play a game on launch day. Nobody, that's the important part. Nobody has to play a game on launch day. Right. You can make a decision here.
Yeah, that is true. Like, honestly, I think that with that being said, I feel like a lot of the times the games that are coming out today that are in early access or that are even made by these AAA companies, they're just not gamers anymore. It's literally just businessmen sitting at the helm and are like, what will make me money and I won't have to spend as much to produce.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're all sitting there in their giant talking head suits, rubbing their hands together.
Yeah, it's a boardroom decision. But no, and just the other thing too is like to go a little bit further on what Dale was saying, like as gamers, we also need to be cognizant if the game we're playing is part of something that we adore, but it sucks or has problems. Like, I used to be pretty bad about this, where I would get really hyped up about a property that I really like and then play, like Diablo Immortal, right? I know this is a really low hanging fruit, but like, I'm a giant Diablo fan. So I played Diablo Immortal and was like, this is pretty fun. And then it wasn't. And then I'm okay saying it sucks. And it sucks for a number of reasons, because I think we should all be able to criticize the things we like. And it sucks as a gamer to have something that you're excited about suck, but things won't get better unless we say it sucks and we walk away from it for a while. And then, you know, you get a couple rebuilding years. It's like a sports team, right? Maybe you bring it back and it's better.
That's true.
Yeah. Imagine what the next Pokemon game could look like if this one had sold 25,000 copies instead of 10 million.
Exactly.
Yeah. Much better, I promise.
Yeah. All right. Sorry about my violent rant, but I'm also just not sorry about it. But you know what time it is now? Time for a sponsored question. It's a sponsored question. The sponsor today is that annoying back pain that you get when you walk any distance. It's only popped up since your body has left early access. What other parts of your life feel like they've been part of an early access program, and why? And I'll go first here because I honestly think that my digestive system is still in early access. It is no longer compatible with things that used to work no problem, like the removed compatibility for like yogurt and ice cream. I don't know why. Some glitches now cause backups, and certain inputs can even cause full system crashes, which is never fun and sometimes messy. And also, and this is my biggest complaint, and it's been my biggest complaint since version 1.0.0.1, but it uses the same input port as the respiratory system. And that seems like it should be a really easy fix. But why can I choke myself on like soup? Like, just give me a second hole for that.
All right.
Honestly, for me, my 20s feel like it's still in early access. I kind of don't know where I'm going in life besides like, you know, work and, you know, just hanging out with friends and playing video games. Like it's been rough, but like I feel like I am starting to slowly get the full game release, because I'm starting to get out these hiccups. I'm not perfect, but nobody is.
Petzl, I want to point out that you have basically said like all of life in your answer. Like every bit of my life is in early access, and I also want to point out that is the most relatable thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, like as two people who are late 30s, that some of that doesn't change. Just FYI. Sorry to be depressing here. Oh man, but yes, I agree. Extremely relatable. I think for me, it'd be like my fucking brain. Like I got sleep glitches all the time. I talk about this pretty regularly. I fucking suck at sleeping. I also like constantly will like be walking around my house making stupid noises like some sort of animal for like no reason. I just there's a lot of cases in which people will explain to me something that's extremely simple and I won't be able to get it, and I don't understand why. So I can't wait till this brain comes out of early access, man.
I am going to need you to provide an example of some of your animal noises.
Oh my. Okay. Well, no. So they're not always.
You did this to you.
That's fine. Here's an example. So the other day, it usually happens when I'm spacing out and then I just start talking and making noise. So the other day I was doing something and my wife was walking around and she's like, oh, you didn't know about, and I interrupted her and I was like, oh, you didn't know? You better call somebody. And then all of a sudden, like my brain just kept going. It was like, call somebody, call somebody, call somebody, call somebody. So like, why did I keep going? And she eventually would like tap me on the shoulder and was like, you're doing like scales or something now. Do you know you're still going? Like somebody left the Brody on, and I was like, oh no. And then I laughed for like 10 minutes straight because I'm like, I'm a fucking idiot. What am I doing? But like the whole time I was like working on something. So I was like not paying attention at all. I was like, call somebody, call somebody, call somebody, call somebody, call somebody, call somebody. It was so stupid, dude.
Honestly, you're just in your own musical and we don't know it.
I mean, yeah, my whole life apparently is something musical.
I love how your brain went from a late 90s wrestling promotion directly to the pentatonic scale.
That's because that shit is in early access, and I could encounter problems.
That sounds like a legit memory leak. You might need to go to the hospital.
I might.
Oh my God, that's amazing. You need a patch in the form of like some sort of chemical altering substance.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. All right. Anybody got anything else they need to say about early access?
No.
All right. Great. Me either. I think it's funny because like prior to this, I was like, oh yeah, I like early access. And then I filled out the outline and I was like, what the fuck? I hate early access.
Fuck this.
Honestly, you have opened my eyes, and I kind of want to start saving myself from early access instead of being taken advantage of.
Yeah, it's so weird how if you don't stop to think about it, it's like, oh, fun, I get to play, X early. And now it's like, wait, what the fuck? Like I'm being legit exploited here.
Yeah.
This is wild. Yep. Yeah. All right, cool. So things that are not in early access are our website. You can go to superokpodcast.com and check out some articles and some videos. We started, by the way, posting all of the podcasts to our YouTube channel as well. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can get in there and do that. It's fun. There's a bunch of other fun videos, but you can check these out on YouTube as well. If you are a Patreon subscriber, we are incredibly grateful to you. We could not keep this free without you. So thanks for that. You can find me at as a 20-sided ninja on Twitch and for now Twitter, although man, that's probably going away real soon. I hate what they're doing over there. Mm-hmm. I'm also on like Hive and Mastodon and all of that. Get in the Discord, and I'm just going to post all of my socials in the Discord, like in my user status, so that way you can just click on them. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Also, our Discord rules. Everybody there is awesome and friendly and whatnot, so you should come and hang out. Brody, where can you be found?
Yeah, you can find me as Arborescence on Discord and on Hive. I have taken myself off Twitter for just there were some comments made by the king of Twitter that I was like, nah, I'm good. So I am out of there. But Pastel, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Where can the people find you?
So you can find me on Twitch at Pastel Potato. You can also go to my Instagram where you can see my lovely face, TTV Pastel Potato. I will also be hopping off of Twitter because of the recent stuff that's been going on. And fuck Dan. I believe it's all Dan's fault.
Yeah, Dan, you caused this Twitter apocalypse.
God damn.
If only you hadn't played Hades in God mode, Elon never would have bought Twitter.
Could have been avoided.
Honestly, you gave everyone free will, and that was your mistake. Oh,
Dan has God powers now.
Oh, man. Wow. Okay.
I love the canon that we've established about Dan. This is great.
Wow.
On a lighter note, Dan, congratulations on getting better at Valorant since the time that we absolutely blasted you about it, though. So I watched a game last night where he went off.
Nice.
Off spelled AWFFFFF. So it was pretty great. Yeah. All right. Everybody, say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Pastel, thanks so much for being here. You were amazing.
Thanks, Pastel.
Thank you. I love you guys.